Welcome to Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. I'm Kevin Parkerson.
And I'm Kevin Higgins. Together we bring you over 60 years in combined experience in global logistics.
In each episode, we'll dive into the latest industry trends, share practical tips, celebrate wins, and share stories from the logistics front lines, all while helping businesses optimize their logistics operations.
Hey, welcome to a special episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. We're here with Heather Rush of Harry F. Long today. We wanted to kind of center an episode around the July 9th deadline that was set for some of the trade deals and tariffs. And so we know that some of that has been extended. And so we've got Heather on the day to give us an update and what's going on. So it's probably... Today is July 9th. This will publish on July 10th. So things are liable to change in between now and tomorrow morning, but we're going to get it out as fast as we can. So welcome, Heather.
Welcome, Heather. Break it down for us, Heather. What's going on?
Well, like Kevin Higgins said, the tariffs were phase 2 of the tariffs were supposed to take effect at 12:01 today, but of course yesterday afternoon the White House signed an executive order extending them now until August 1st. Of course, they're stating that the extension is the final extension and they won't be extended again, but who knows? That seems to be a running thing because these were already extended 90 days from April. So We'll have to see how it goes. So right now, the letters, the White House is sending letters out. They started off before July 3rd, on July 3rd, sending letters out to a few countries, and now they're continuing to send letters out this week in efforts to negotiate trade deals before that August 1st deadline.
So Heather, I'm not trying to steal KP's thunder here, but what trade deals do we have done right now?
So Vietnam's done, UK's done, and China is done with still some details to be hammered out.
Okay. Well, I have this morning, I had a specific question on LinkedIn of a guy that is local here and they do a lot of sourcing out of Vietnam. And so he was questioning what that trade deal actually looked like, what the tariffs were going to be. They're apparel manufacturer over there. And they were like hearing, oh, it's going to be 20% on top of something or else and it didn't sound like they had a lot of good direction on that.
So they haven't come out with the official in writing guidance that Customs usually provides. They haven't done that yet. It is 20%, and that is on top of whatever the normal tariff is.
Okay. So it's an additional 20% on top of the normal tariff. That's what we're being told about Vietnam. Right. Okay.
So Heather, what are you advising? What would you advise businesses today, July 9th or 10th? What should they be doing if they haven't already been doing, and in preparation for what could be the final extension through August 1st? So we have, less than 30 days. What should they be doing?
Well, if they haven't already been doing it, looking at their HTS code classifications and validating they're correct, having their broker look at them as well. If there are any that are in question, get a ruling from Customs on them. Because if you have it classified one way and you want to change it to something else, having Customs taking a look at that and confirming that you should be classifying it differently, you'll have that in writing for them. So if they come back and question it, you already have addressed that issue. But looking at that, looking at potential, changes in resource or in sourcing, and can you diversify your suppliers? Can you change your countries of origin? A lot of people can't do that. And some products can't be produced anywhere else. So it's just, it's a mixture of things depending on the size of the importer and what products they're trying to import.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot about tariff stacking, but most companies don't understand it until it hits their bottom line. Can you walk us through a real world example, like importing steel bolts from South Korea?
Sure. And that's a great one because that creates quite a stack actually. So if you have typically before all this started, a steel bolt out of Korea would have 0 tariff. It would be a free tariff. But now you have the reciprocal tariffs at 10%. You had a steel tariff at 25%, but then in early June, it went up to 50%. So you went from 0 up to 60% now, with the potential of, with these August 1st tariffs, could be even more if it changes from that 10%. Add to that the steel component, how much of it is steel? So it's a derivative. So you have your reciprocal tariff, then you have your steel tariff and the derivative of steel, and then you have whatever else that bolt is made out of. So you wind up creating multiple stacks, and you can have multiple tariffs, where it used to just be 1 or 2 line items. Now it's multiple. And one thing that came up, and there hasn't been a lot of noise about it, and I think it's just because it's more on the customs broker side and the impact it has on the brokers that are doing the entries. But a couple weeks ago, Customs announced they enhanced the system they used to allow 8 different HTS codes per line item, per entry item. They've now expanded it to allow 16. So if you think about it, you have an example on the opposite of a steel bolt, which is just one piece. You have portable solar kits, like generator kits, and they're put together in China. Let's use China because that makes it even worse. You have China that are assembling these kits and bundling it together and shipping it in. You have the lithium battery, you have the solar panels, you have the charger cords, you have the adapters, you have the instruction manual, you have mounting plates. And they're all coming in together, but you're stacking them and breaking them up, and add to it, it's from China. And then add to it, you have the IEEP tariffs for the fentanyl from China. And then you have the mounting brackets are partially aluminum. They're making it so they can continue to add these different tariffs, which has a lot of us concerned that it was 8. What are their plans if now you can go to 16 on one single line item?
Yeah. And is that stacking, is that a new concept, new process, or has that always kind of been in place?
There's always been the ability to break out depending on the components of an item, but now these tariffs are different impacts, whether it be a trade tariff or it's definitely a new concept that they're adding more and more. It used to be one or the other, and you would have to decide, and there was a prioritization of which ones took priority of the other. Now they're writing it so you can have multiple, even government trade tariffs added on.
Oh, wow.
So, Heather, what are you hearing from BCOs, this complexity of what you just went through? How do these layered tariffs stacking affect like landed cost calculations and pricing strategy? What are you hearing? What intel can you provide?
Well, I think the big thing that people are trying to do is run cost scenarios on their landed cost. And if they're not updating every time there's a tariff shift, and you think about that kit that I just talked about, think about that if they're manufacturing something or they're putting together something in the United States where they're bringing in different parts from multiple countries, they're having to model out all the different pieces and parts to put it together to develop their landed costs. And it's becoming incredibly complex. And I think a lot of companies, the bigger BCOs, I think are expanding their trade compliance departments. They're looking for technology, for platforms that can do modeling scenarios for them, because it's gotten so vast. And there's a lot of talk about AI. Like every time you have a conversation, it's about AI. I can tell you, AI hasn't figured out classification yet.
Yeah. Well,
that's pretty telling.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a tough one. But Heather, I was just sitting here thinking as you were talking about all of that. So let's use somebody who manufactures apparel in Vietnam, right? Is it no longer, or has it never been, where they'll have like a single HTS number for a pair of pants? If that pair of pants has a zipper that came from China and a snap that came from someplace else, are they going to now see, the layered approach, or will it still be, one single classification?
It should be one single classification based on where the majority of the production takes place.
Okay.
So, Heather, are you hearing or seeing businesses consider delaying, or now that with a July 9th deadline extending to August 1st, what type of conversations have you heard in regards to potential delays, or what do these businesses do now that thinking July 9th was the deadline and now it's August 1st? What are you hearing about delaying cargo?
It's been a mix. It's been a mix since these started the whole announcement started in June or in January, but then in April, they really started kicking up, and people have been taking different approaches. It's again, do they have the bandwidth to make changes? Do they have the supply chain to shift resourcing? Some of them just hedged their bets and assumed that there would be, kicking the can down the road, and they may be right. Some of them went ahead and brought product in early and are sitting on it and wanted to get it in before. Remember, the tariffs for China went up to 145%, and people were trying to beat that in, and then they dropped down. And so the volumes have been up and down, and people have been trying to figure out what to do. One of the interesting things about the China tariffs and all are the FTZs. And there was a big talk about FTZs were going to be used a lot. But one of the conditions of some of the executive orders that have come out, that if you use an FTZ, it has to be entered, it has to be considered privileged. And so when it's privileged and entered into an FTZ, the date it enters into that FTZ, or the day that it's designated as privileged, is the date that the tariff applies. They don't have to pay the duties until it leaves that FTZ, but they have to, that's the date of declaration, that's the date of entry that they have to pay the duties on.
Wow.
The typical bonded facility, if it's just a standard bonded, the duty applies on the date of withdrawal for consumption out of that bonded warehouse.
That's interesting.
That is very
I had
interesting.
not heard that.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it that
So
way.
foreign trade zone cargoes being treated differently based on the date of privilege.
Correct.
That the duty rate is applicable as of that date versus a bonded warehouse, which is being pulled out. Is this the withdrawal?
Right. Now, there was the order that came out yesterday, which delayed or extended the current tariffs, that the wording on the privileged versus non-privileged is not clear. So they didn't re-emphasize that it has to be privileged or that it now can be not privileged. But so there's people reaching out trying to get clarification on that. But as of the earlier order, if it's going into an FTZ, it has to be declared as privileged.
Wow.
Never a dull moment.
It's not, but it is so complex and it's ever changing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, today we're recording this July 9th, and it will be very interesting to see how this transpires in 24 hours when this is released, and more importantly, definitely between now and August 1st. So with that, what's the number one thing, if you're a business and or a freight forwarder advising clients that they should be doing today in preparation for August 1st? Again, supposedly there will not be further extensions. So August 1st is the deadline. What should the one thing they should be doing?
Validating their HTS classification, just making sure it's classified correctly, and working with a broker to do that. Your question kind of throws me a bit, because there's different freight forwarders, and there's some freight forwarders that have really great customs broker divisions. Mm-hmm. And then there are other freight forwarders that's just a bolt on to what really makes them the money is the freight forwarding side. Right. And they're just entry writers. So as an independent customs broker, we're focused entirely on customs, and it's all about those classifications and making sure looking for the best possible options, whether it be free trade agreements or different options of how to get the best or the lowest duty rate, but still have it be accurate. Yeah. And one thing to to be concerned about is that if you're an importer and you go through and you change your HTS classifications, like I mentioned before, getting that ruling that customs agrees with that classification. But say you've been bringing that product in for the past 10 years, and now you're changing the HTS classification. Even if customs agrees that that's the correct ruling, what about the past 10 years? And is that going to open you up for audit for up to 5 years back of the item that you've now changed your classification on?
Yep.
So interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said there, Heather, this is not a shameless plug for anything other than if you do not have a great relationship with a customs broker, with your customs broker, now is the time to start building that, because this is probably not going to get any easier.
Yeah, no, fully agree. And I mean, it is about relationships, and it is about, I mean, compliance is not just red tape, it's insurance.
Yep.
So making sure you have your classifications correct, your accurate documentation, and that you have somebody that can file a protest there and ready to do it is vital.
Yep. You have a trusted partnership.
Right. And we, having a lot of conversations with, of course, I'm in sales. I'm trying to build more customers, and bring more clients into our company. But so many people are just so nervous about what's going on and have no understanding of what's going on that they're afraid to make that change, where even though they know they need to make that change.
Yeah.
Well, that's one reason why, we wanted to do this episode, is to provide a resource for our audience and for potential customers and clients. So with that, in the event someone listening would like to have further dialogue and needs some assistance and just wants to phone a friend and a resource, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, they can certainly, if I give my email address, it's heather.r@longcustomsbroker.com. Somehow we're eventually going to change that to a shorter email address. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on X, just find us there.
And we'll make sure we put that information in the notes of the episode as well. So maybe one last parting question really is, if there's anything else that you would want to share with the audience today, what would that be? What other guidance would you provide?
Well, I think the one thing is, even if you think the classification is wrong, or you think customs is wrong in how they're classifying things, they're going to assess and collect the duties that they think are correct at the time of entry. And you can then go back and protest and get a refund if the ruling changes down the road, if a classification changes down the road. So just the understanding of, you can't just not pay it. You can't just, put up a protest or say, I'm going to protest. Protest is a very formal, a very official thing within the customs world, but you can't just not pay it, or you can't just pay what you think it should be. You need to go with what they're saying it should be, then file a protest.
Yeah.
And then apply for the refund.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Heather, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing that wisdom, that guidance, that advice. And if the audience needs to reach out and just have further dialogue, look in the notes of this episode as well. So, Heather, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for being a resource for what are trying times for many in the industry right now. So having a trusted partner like Heather Rush and Harry F. Long is really, really important in these days. So thanks for joining us.
Appreciate the time.
Yeah, good to see you, Heather.
Good to see you too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics. If today's discussion inspired you, don't forget to follow, subscribe, rate, and share our podcast.
Remember, every great journey in logistics starts with a single step forward. Let's continue working together to transform the industry.